13 days, that's the clock we're staring at, not a joke, not a catchy promo line. 13 days until a policy switch is thrown and the silver market you think you understand starts operating under an entirely different rulebook. February 1st, 2026, mark it, circle it, burn it into your calendar. Because the instant the clock passes midnight Eastern, a single executive decision can transform today's normal premiums into tomorrow's good luck finding any at all. And no, I'm not talking about some dramatic movie-style confiscation scene. This is something far quieter and far more effective. I'm talking about friction, delays, layered costs, bottlenecks, the kind of supply chain pressure that doesn't need to outlaw silver to keep it out of your hands. Because if you can't buy it at a price that makes sense, or you can't buy it at all, the outcome is identical. You're sidelined. What I'm about to do is connect dots that most coverage refuses to connect. I'm going to walk you through why a tariff headline that sounds like political theater can turn into a real physical silver problem for you personally. And I'm going to explain why this window isn't some dramatic countdown for clicks. It's a real timeline driven by shipping cycles, dealer inventory realities, and the simple fact that you can't teleport metal across oceans whenever you feel like it. But before we go any further, I need your help with something quick. A lot of you watch every update, you binge the videos, you come back again and again, and the YouTube stats show that many of you still haven't subscribed. If you value the original work here, hit subscribe and comment OG John AG right now so I know you're backing the real thing. All right, let's get into it because the clock is already ticking. On the surface, the policy angle looks simple. A 10% tariff is scheduled to go live on February 1st, 2026, aimed at imports connected to a list of European countries. The names being discussed include the United Kingdom, Germany, France, the Netherlands, Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. The public storyline will focus on politics, Greenland, diplomacy, leverage, retaliation. That's what people will argue about on TV and social media. But markets don't care about arguments. Markets care about flows. Where metal is refined, where it's vaulted, how it moves, who controls it, and how quickly it can be delivered when demand suddenly spikes. And that's where silver becomes interesting. Because a surprising amount of global silver liquidity doesn't come straight from mines you can point to on a map. It comes from the hidden infrastructure, refining networks, vaulting systems, and wholesale distribution channels. It comes from hubs. And one of the most important hubs in that system is Europe, especially London. Let me be very clear before anyone twists this. This is not Europe owns all the silver. This is Europe plays a massive role in the machinery that makes silver available when buyers suddenly want it. That distinction matters, because silver existing somewhere is not the same thing as silver being deliverable to you, on time, at a reasonable premium. If the delivery system is disrupted, the metal might as well be locked behind glass. The price you see on your screen becomes a suggestion, not a reality. So why does London matter? London isn't just a city full of bankers and headlines. It's a vaulting hub, it's a standards hub, it's a pricing hub. A huge amount of institutional silver is stored, tracked, and accounted for inside that ecosystem. When large players talk about silver inventories, they're often talking about big bars stored under very specific rules with very specific standards inside very specific vaulting networks. You've heard terms like LBMA, you've heard good delivery, you've heard vault holdings. Those aren't trivia. That's the plumbing of the silver market. And when plumbing gets clogged, water doesn't stop existing. It stops reaching your faucet. This is where the tariff deadline stops being political noise and starts becoming a real market mechanism. A tariff changes the economics of movement. It changes who can import profitably. It changes what wholesalers can quote. It changes whether dealers can restock without blowing premiums sky high. Most people don't realize how thin retail silver margins actually are. Many dealers aren't swimming in profit. They're surviving on volume. They need predictable sourcing, predictable shipping timelines, and predictable costs. When you suddenly slap an extra 10% onto a specific import lane, that lane doesn't just get a little more expensive. It can become completely unworkable. And when one major lane breaks down, everyone piles into the remaining lanes. That's when availability, not spot price, becomes the real price. If you're thinking 10% doesn't sound catastrophic, I understand why. If you're buying a single coin as a keepsake, maybe it isn't. But if you're building a serious position, 10% is not small, especially when you layer in insurance, shipping, financing, handling, storage, and the risk buffer that every professional adds when the future looks uncertain. Costs don't show up alone. They stack. That's why a 10% tariff headline can easily turn into something far larger by the time you're checking out. And that's before we even unleash the real monster, panic buying. Panic buying is what turns a manageable disruption into a full-blown market event. And a tariff deadline is the perfect spark. Why? Because deadlines create urgency, And urgency triggers the same behavior every time. People wait, they joke, they dismiss it, and then, at the last moment, they all rush in together. When everyone rushes at once, the shelves don't care what you believe. They just empty. Now stay with me, because this is where the trap really gets set. There are two silver markets, the paper market and the physical market. The paper market is easy. You click, you buy, you watch a number move, and it feels like ownership. But it's not the same thing as holding metal. A paper position is a price position. A physical position is an ownership position. In a supply squeeze, price can lag reality while ownership becomes priceless. You can end up in a surreal situation where spot looks calm, ETFs look calm, your screen says nothing happened, while real silver in real hands is trading at massive premiums above spot. That gap isn't theoretical. We've seen versions of it before whenever supply tightens, and if supply gets squeezed while demand stays sticky, that gap can explode quickly. And silver demand is sticky. This is where people underestimate it. Silver isn't just a stacker's metal, it's a working metal. Solar panels, electronics, medical devices, industrial contacts. These industries don't switch materials overnight. They can't. They have engineering specs, certifications, long-term contracts, and production lines that don't stop on a dime. So when supply slows or gets cut off, those buyers don't shrug and pause. They scramble. They pay up, they lock in contracts, they outbid, and retail buyers get pushed to the back of the line. That's the uncomfortable truth. Industrial demand can become forced demand, and forced demand doesn't negotiate. If a production line costs millions per day, they'll pay more for silver to keep it running. This is why availability matters more than charts in moments like this. Let me lay out the mechanics plainly, because once you understand the sequence, the noise stops distracting you. It usually goes like this: policy announcement, then a deadline, then positioning, then a rush, then delays, then premium spikes, then supply rationing. After that, the market splits into two groups, people who already have metal and people desperately trying to get it. The second group pays whatever it takes, assuming they can even find it. You'll hear a lot of people throw around inventory numbers to sound informed, but most don't understand what those numbers actually represent. So let's clarify. COMEX inventory isn't one big pile, it's categorized. Eligible metal meets specifications and could be delivered if the owner chooses. Registered metal is already tagged and ready for delivery against futures contracts. Those are very different things. In stress situations, eligible metal does not automatically become registered. Owners can hold it back. So when you hear a big headline inventory figure, the real question is, how much is registered and how fast is that number changing? Because registered inventory is what gets squeezed. When that squeeze happens, exchanges start pulling levers, margins rise, rules get adjusted, cash settlement becomes more attractive, and every lever sends the same message to the market. Physical metal is tight. That message triggers more buying. That's how squeezes feed themselves. Understand this clearly. Tariffs don't show up as a neat +10% line item in your life. They show up as friction, delays, confusion, surprise fees, and friction is where supply chains break. Here's the part nobody likes to talk about. When costs jump suddenly, the players who can move inventory fastest win. Everyone else freezes. While they freeze, shelves empty. If you've never watched a dealer get cleaned out in real time, it's shocking. 1 hour they're fully stocked, the next hour it's call for availability. The hour after that, we're not taking new orders. That's how fast sentiment flips. That flip doesn't happen because everyone suddenly becomes a silver expert. It happens because the same thought hits everyone at once. What if I can't get it later? And when people hear London, many think it's just a pricing reference, like a website. It's not. It's a physical location with vaults, logistics lanes, and rule books. Those rules matter. Standards matter. LBMA, good delivery matters because institutions don't move random metal. They move specific bars that meet strict criteria. So when you hear about hundreds of millions of ounces in London, don't picture coins in a room. Picture massive industrial bars sitting in vaults, tied up with ownership tags, legal claims, and contracts. That's why the phrase, "there's plenty of silver in the world," is technically true, but practically useless. Much of that silver is spoken for and unavailable to your local dealer. This leads to a critical point. It's not about global silver. It's about deliverable silver into the United States, at a price dealers can realistically quote. If it's overseas and expensive or slow to move, it might as well be on the moon. When supply becomes uncertain, dealers respond in predictable ways. First, they raise premiums, not out of greed, but to slow demand and manage inventory like a lifeboat. Second, they narrow product selection, cutting low-margin items and pushing what they can restock. Third, they shorten quote windows. Those price-locked for 5 minutes timers get shorter, not longer. So if your plan is to wait and see until February 2nd, understand what you're really waiting for. Dealers to rewrite their business model overnight. Once that switch flips, there's no negotiating. You take what's available, or you don't. For those still saying, it's only 10%, remember this. If you're building a position, 10% can be the difference between finishing your plan and getting stuck halfway. Silver isn't bought once, it's built over time, and disruption steals time. Here's a simple example. A wholesaler imports a pallet of silver bars from Europe. The tariff is applied to declared value. Insurance is based on declared value. Financing is based on declared value. Handling depends on weight. Storage depends on time. When value rises, every linked cost rises with it. That's why disruptions always feel larger than the headline. Now let's address the paper versus physical trap again. ETFs are easy. That's their appeal. But ease disappears the moment you actually need metal. A paper position tracks price. A physical position guarantees availability. In a squeeze, availability is everything. You could be up 10% on paper while physical buyers are paying 40% premiums just to get delivery. Market psychology makes this worse. Stage 1, people laugh. Stage 2, people get annoyed. Stage 3, curiosity sets in. Stage 4, panic. The market rewards those who act in stages 2 and 3, not those who panic at stage 4. Another angle most mainstream coverage misses is how quickly industrial buyers become forced buyers. Solar companies need silver paste, electronics firms need silver contacts, medical manufacturers can't just substitute overnight. When procurement teams hear tariff, they don't wait for Twitter debates, they start calling suppliers. This is how squeezes become self-reinforcing. Industrial buyers don't care about premiums the way retail buyers do. If a production line is worth millions per day, they'll pay whatever it takes. Retail demand gets crowded out first. That's when orders turn from ships today into we'll call you. On inventories, remember, eligible is not registered. In stress, owners can withhold. When registered inventory shrinks and delivery demands rise, exchanges respond by raising margins, adjusting rules, and encouraging cash settlement. Each move screams the same thing. Physical is tight. Spot price often reacts last. Premiums react early. Availability reacts immediately. Waiting for spot confirmation is often waiting too long. Here's a practical checklist. First, decide price exposure or ownership. If ownership, you need physical in hand. Second, prioritize speed and reliability over saving a couple bucks. Third, don't endlessly browse. Pick a trusted source and act. Fourth, verify your metal on arrival and store it properly. Fifth, keep quiet. Privacy equals security. Buying doesn't create shortages, it reveals them. The shelves were always limited. The only question is who notices first. And keep your eye on June. February's 10% is the warning shot. June's potential 25% is the structural shift. People won't wait until June. They'll react months earlier because they see it coming. Expectations accelerate behavior. I've also left bonus links in the description. Our premium WhatsApp channel for fast updates, and channel membership for deeper research, including members-only deep dives created by a separate research team. These aren't recycled clips. They're purpose-built. 2 questions for you. Do you think these tariffs actually stick through June, or does politics soften them? And if premiums spike after February 1st, what's your plan? Buy anyway, wait, or pivot. Drop your thoughts below. If you've had success, share it. Not to flex, but to motivate others. There's also a link to a separate channel focused entirely on real silver success stories, real people, real timelines. Those stories can change your mindset, and mindset is half the game. When policy hits markets, there's always a lag between announcement and reality. That lag is the opportunity. The window isn't before prices rise, it's before availability gets repriced. Picture February 2nd. A friend who laughed last week texts you asking where to buy silver. He clicks the link. Half the products are out of stock. The rest ship in weeks. Premiums are way higher. That's when it clicks. It was never about charts. It was about pipelines. Alternative import routes aren't magic. They're limited. They cost more. And those costs show up in premiums. Even a temporary disruption can cause permanent damage because once trust and availability breaks, people hoard more and sell less. Don't let perfection stop action. You don't need the perfect mix. Just exposure to physical metal you trust, from a source you trust, before the deadline. Even a small position beats a perfect one that never happens. This policy doesn't need confiscation to lock you out, it just needs enough friction to slow flows. In a tight market, slowing flow equals removing supply. That's how shortages start. That's how premiums explode. That's how regret replaces metal. Watch shipping guarantees. When dealers stop promising delivery dates, the market is whispering the truth. The metal exists, but the pipeline is turning to sand. Time is your advantage. Every day you wait, the same ounces get chased by more buyers. If you already have silver, audit it. Know what you own and why it matters. If you don't, start small. One order teaches more than weeks of scrolling. Take action. Share your thoughts. Keep it respectful. Are you stacking before February 1st or reacting later? I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to help you avoid being surprised. Silver doesn't punish wrong direction. It punishes late availability. February 1st is a hard date for a soft market. Even if politics are noise, supply chains are real. If you move, move early. If you don't, make it a conscious choice, not procrastination. If this helped you connect the dots, subscribe, like, and comment OG John AG. Check the description for the bonus links, the premium WhatsApp channel, and the members-only deep dives. Share success stories. Ask questions. This community gets stronger when we talk. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next one.